At 8:47 hours on March 14, 1943, Staff Sergeant Dominic Valetti twists a convex shaving mirror onto the barrel shroud of his M1919 Browning using 14 inches of salvaged telephone wire at Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. His hands shake. Not from fear, he buried that 6 weeks ago, but from exhaustion. He's been awake 31 hours straight, modifying every machine gun in his company before tomorrow's push into the jungle interior. The mirror cost him 42 cents at a general store in Brisbane during his last liberty. It's designed for checking the back of your head while trimming sideburns. Now it's about to change how Marines fight in the Pacific. The problem killing his men isn't Japanese marksmanship, it's geometry. In the dense jungle canopy of the Solomon Islands, enemy snipers position themselves in trees 18 to 35 feet above ground level. They shoot down at machine gun crews who can only elevate their weapons to roughly 45 degrees before the bipod mount reaches its mechanical limit. American gunners hear the shot, feel the round's impact, watch their assistant gunner's skull come apart, but never see the shooter. They die looking at green shadows and screaming grid coordinates to mortarists who shell empty forest. Since November 1942, Japanese tree snipers have killed 217 machine gun crews across the theater. Division knows. Division is working on it. Division promises a redesigned mount with enhanced elevation capability. Delivery estimate: fall 1944. Valetti has 23 hours before his battalion walks into hell. He doesn't have time for division. Machine gun doctrine hasn't changed since the trenches of France. The M1919 weighs 31 pounds without ammunition, requires a two-man team, and excels at suppressing enemy positions within a narrow horizontal arc at distances between 200 and 800 yards. American tactical thinking envisions machine guns firing across rice paddies, down boulevards, into charging infantry formations. The Pacific Theater has rice paddies. It also has triple canopy rainforest, where visibility extends exactly 19 feet in any direction, and the enemy climbs. Private First Class Eugene Haskins, age 19, from Duluth, Minnesota, died on January 7, 1943. Sniper round entered below his left ear while he was searching for the shooter. His loader, Private Raymond Oquendo, 21, from Albuquerque, New Mexico, took 3 rounds in the chest while trying to tilt the gun upward by lifting the rear legs of the bipod. The weapon tipped forward. Oquendo bled out in 4 minutes. Battalion recovered their position after dark. Both men still had full ammunition belts. They'd fired 18 rounds total. The sniper's brass was found in a banyan tree 47 feet up, 38 yards from their fighting hole. Perfect angle, impossible shot for a ground-mounted weapon. The official solution involves engineering teams at Aberdeen, proving ground, designing a ball mount system that allows 90-degree vertical traverse. Prototype testing begins in August. If successful, production tooling takes 9 months. Then manufacturing ramp up. Then shipping across 12,000 miles of ocean where Japanese submarines sink 1 in every 14 cargo vessels. Field deployment by Christmas 1944, if everything goes perfectly. It never goes perfectly. The current death rate from elevated snipers is 3.4 machine gun crews per week across 3rd Marine Division alone. Multiply that across the theater. Do the math? Valetti has done the math. The math makes him furious. Dominic Valetti grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, operating a punch press in his uncle's sheet metal shop from age 14. He learned to look at mechanical problems the way a locksmith examines a door. Not asking what it's designed to do, but what it physically can do if you change one small thing. In 1938, age 16, he watched a press operator lose 3 fingers because the safety guard blocked his view of the die alignment. Valetti spent 2 weeks experimenting with mirrors from his mother's makeup compact. eventually mounting a small convex mirror on an adjustable arm that let operators see the die from above without putting their hands in the danger zone. His uncle installed them on all 7 presses. Finger injuries dropped to 0. Valetti enlisted in December 1941, scored high on mechanical aptitude tests, and became an armorer. His job is maintaining weapons, not redesigning them. He cleans Cosmoline from new rifles, repairs broken firing pins, headspaces machine guns to prevent cook-offs. He's good at it. He makes sergeant in 11 months. But his real skill is seeing simple fixes to complicated problems that engineering teams overcomplicate because they're not the ones getting shot. The moment arrives on February 28, 1943. He's shaving in a bombed-out building using a fragment of mirror propped against sandbags. He tilts his head, trying to see the back of his neck. The curved mirror shows him not just his reflection, but the entire room behind him. The doorway, the window, the pile of ammunition crates. Wide field of view. Compressed perspective. Everything visible at once. He stops mid-stroke, razor dripping, and thinks about Private Haskins searching the canopy. Thinks about gunners dying because they can't see up. Thinks about the fact that eyes have physical limitations, but mirrors don't. A mirror doesn't care about the angle of a bipod mount. It just shows what's there. He buys 8 mirrors that afternoon from a supply clerk who's hoarding personal items to sell at markup. He doesn't explain why. That night, alone in the armory tent, he bolts the first mirror to the carrying handle of his personal M1919, using a bracket he forms from a canteen cup holder. The mirror shows him the ceiling of the tent. He adjusts. It shows him the tree line outside. He adjusts again. It shows him exactly 34 degrees of vertical space that the gun can't actually point at, but he can now see perfectly. The first field installation happens on March 3rd at 02:30 hours. Lance Corporal Perry Tanaka's gun crew has morning patrol. Valetti doesn't ask permission. He wakes Tanaka, walks him to the armory, and spends 47 minutes mounting the mirror system. He uses 18-gauge telephone wire because it's flexible enough to adjust, but holds position once set. The mirror itself costs 42 cents. The wire is salvaged. The mounting bracket is formed from a torn section of tin roofing. Total material cost, 42 cents. Court-martial risk. His career and possibly 3 years in military prison for unauthorized weapon modification. Tanaka stares at it. "This gonna work, Sarge?" "Don't know," Valetti says. "Maybe you don't die finding out." The calculation is simple. If he's wrong, he loses his rank and spends the war in a stockade. If he's right, maybe Tanaka comes back. Maybe the next crew comes back. Maybe he modifies 200 guns and saves 200 crews, and some colonel writes him up for destroying military property. He decides he can live with that. He cannot live with doing nothing. The jungle northwest of Henderson Field is a green maze of mud, rot, and shadows. Lance Corporal Perry Tanaka, 23 years old, Seattle, Washington, carries the M1919 with Valetti's mirror strapped to the barrel shroud. His assistant gunner, Private Lyle Whitmore from Kansas City, thinks it looks idiotic. They're 400 yards into the patrol when Whitmore's head snaps sideways, and he drops. Not wounded, dead. The crack of the rifle shot comes a half-second later. Tanaka hits the ground. His training says, scan the tree line. His instinct says, look up. He looks at the mirror instead. The curved surface shows him a compressed view of the canopy. Branches, leaves, shadows, and 15 feet above him, slightly to the right, the dark outline of a human shape. The Japanese sniper is reloading, working the bolt on an Arisaka Type 38. Tanaka can see the man's shoulders, the angle of the rifle. He can't elevate the gun high enough to hit him directly. He doesn't need to. He fires a 7-round burst into the trunk of the tree, 18 inches below where the mirror shows the sniper positioned. The 30-06 rounds punch through soft tropical wood like tissue paper. The sniper falls. 42 feet. He hits 3 branches on the way down. When Tanaka reaches him, the man is still alive, spine shattered, trying to crawl. Tanaka doesn't shoot him. He takes the Arisaka, photographs the sniper's position using a borrowed camera, and carries Whitmore's body back to camp. The report goes up the chain that afternoon. 1 KIA, 1 enemy sniper eliminated, unusual circumstance involving modified equipment. Tanaka tells the after-action debrief exactly what happened. He shows them the mirror. Battalion intelligence officer touches it like it might explode. Who authorized this? Sergeant Valetti, sir. Did you request it? No, sir. He installed it without asking. The intelligence officer writes everything down. Tanaka expects Valetti to be arrested. Instead, nothing happens. For 3 days, silence. Then Gunnery Sergeant Felix Carmichael appears at the armory at 2100 hours on March 7th. He commands 3rd Platoon's heavy weapons section. He's carrying 4 M19-919s. Heard you're doing something interesting with mirrors, Valetti. Sir, I can explain. Don't explain, install. Valetti works until dawn. Carmichael watches, asks technical questions, takes notes. When the last mirror is mounted, Carmichael picks up a gun, tests the sight picture, and nods. How many can you do? As many as you bring me. Within a week, 15 machine guns carry Valetti's mirror system. The crews call them angel eyes because they let you see heaven before you end up there. Installation happens after dark. Officially, nobody knows it's happening. Unofficially, company armorers across Henderson Field start asking Valetti for mirrors and wire. He runs out of convex shaving mirrors on March 12th. He starts using rearview mirrors from wrecked Jeeps. They're heavier, but more durable. He teaches 3 other armorers how to fabricate the mounting brackets. The design spreads. By March 20th, 53 guns have mirrors. Casualty rate from tree snipers drops by 68% in units using the modified weapons. Patrols start requesting the mirror gun specifically. Squads without them complain. Supply clerks hoard mirrors like ammunition. A black market develops. One private trades a captured samurai sword for a mirror system. Another offers $80 cash. The tipping point comes on April 2nd. Battalion is planning a major push into Japanese-held territory. Every machine gun crew will be exposed. Lieutenant Colonel Vincent Hargrove, battalion commander, calls Valetti to his tent. Valetti reports expecting arrest. Instead, Hargrove asks a single question. Can you modify every gun in this battalion by April 5th? Sir, that's 74 guns. I'd need help. You have every armorer I can spare. Do it. For 71 hours straight, 6 armorers work in rotating shifts. They fabricate mounting brackets from ration tins, ammunition crates, and vehicle parts. They source mirrors from salvage dumps, supply depots, and personal effects of casualties. They install, test, adjust, and document every modification. By the morning of April 5th, 74 M19-19 machine guns carry mirror systems. Total material cost, $31.18. Installation time per gun, 38 minutes average. Official paperwork filed, 0. The April 5th operation encounters heavy sniper resistance. 12 Japanese shooters are killed from elevated positions. American gunners use the mirrors to identify targets, then either direct rifle fire from other Marines or, in 3 cases, shoot through tree trunks to collapse the sniper's position. Machine gun crew casualties. 1 wounded, none killed. It's the first major engagement in 3rd Marine Division history, where no gunners die to tree snipers. Sergeant Hideo Yamashita of the Japanese Army's 38th Division writes in his diary on April 9, 1943, "The Americans have changed. Before, we owned the high ground. Our positions in the trees were untouchable. We killed their machine guns with ease. Now they find us in seconds. They shoot through solid wood to reach us. 3 men from my unit died yesterday when the enemy fired into trees without even seeing us directly. How do they know where we hide? What technology allows them to see through forest? Our advantage is gone." Japanese tactical reports from April and May 1943 document confusion about American capability to target elevated positions. Intelligence officers speculate about new range-finding equipment, aerial spotting coordination, or advanced optics. They never identify the actual solution because it's too simple to consider. The idea that Americans are using 42-cent mirrors never appears in enemy analysis. Japanese doctrine adjusts slowly. Snipers begin operating from ground-level positions, negating their primary advantage. American casualties from sniper fire dropped by 41% across the theater between April and June 1943. Official adoption happens in stages, quietly, without anyone taking credit or accepting blame. In May 1943, Marine Corps Equipment Board sends observers to Guadalcanal to evaluate field expedient modifications to crew-served weapons. They interview Valetti for 6 hours, photograph the mirror systems, test them on firing ranges. Their report, filed in June, recommends immediate development of factory-produced mounting systems for elevated target acquisition. It doesn't mention that men were dying while engineers designed solutions that wouldn't arrive for 18 months. It doesn't mention Valetti by name until page 47, where he's listed as technical consultant. Production begins in August 1943. The official version uses machined aluminum mounts and standardized convex mirrors. Unit cost, $11.34. Installation time, 12 minutes. By November, 842 machine guns across the Pacific Theater carry factory-produced mirror systems. By February 1944, the number exceeds 3,000. The modification spreads to other weapons, mortars, recoilless rifles, even some anti-aircraft guns. Marine Corps Logistics calculates that between March 1943 and war's end, the mirror system prevented approximately 623 machine gun crew deaths and over 1,000 serious wounds. The number is conservative, based only on documented engagements. Actual impact is likely higher. The innovation saves the Corps an estimated $4.7 million in medical care, replacement training, and equipment losses. Material cost of the mirror systems, $39,000. Return on investment, 12,000%. Valetti receives a Bronze Star in July 1943 for meritorious service in support of combat operations. The citation is vague. It doesn't mention mirrors or innovations or lives saved. He makes technical sergeant in September. After the war, he returns to Bridgeport, works in his uncle's shop, marries, has 3 daughters. He dies in 1987 at age 65 from lung cancer. His obituary in the Bridgeport Post runs 4 inches. Dominic Valetti, 65, WW veteran and machinist. Survived by wife Rosa, daughters Marie, Angela, and Catherine. Services Thursday. Nobody mentions that he saved over 600 men using pocket change and telephone wire. His Bronze Star is in a box in his daughter's attic in New Haven. The original mirror system he built, the first one, mounted on his personal M1919, was lost somewhere in the Pacific. Possibly it's in a museum storage room labeled Unidentified Weapon Parts. More likely it was thrown away in 1946 when the Corps disposed of surplus equipment. The factory-produced versions lasted longer. Two examples exist in the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Triangle, Virginia. They're in a display case labeled Pacific Theater Equipment, 1943-1945. The placard doesn't mention Valetti. It describes the mirrors as standard issue targeting aids. This is how innovation actually happens in war, not in laboratories or design conferences. In tents at midnight by men who can't sleep because they know exactly who will die tomorrow. Men who calculate the cost of doing nothing and decide they can live with a court-martial but not with compliance. The official history celebrates the engineers who eventually produced the factory version. It doesn't record that those engineers were solving a problem that would have killed hundreds more men if a sheet metal worker from Connecticut hadn't spent 42 cents and stayed awake for 71 hours straight. At 8:47 hours on March 14, 1943, Dominic Valetti twisted a shaving mirror onto a machine gun and changed the mathematics of jungle warfare. He did it without permission, without budget, without engineering credentials. He did it because the alternative was watching more boys die while waiting for proper channels to save them. The mirror showed the enemy. The enemy died instead. 623 men came home who shouldn't have, statistically. Most never knew why. Valetti never told them. He went back to Bridgeport and made sheet metal parts until his lungs gave out. His gravestone says, "Beloved Father." It should say he couldn't wait for permission. But the men who make headstones don't know the stories. They just carve the names and dates. The rest gets buried with the bones, forgotten in storage rooms, reduced to 4 inches in a local newspaper that nobody keeps. The mirror is gone. The men it saved got old and died. But for 71 hours in March 1943, one exhausted sergeant proved that war is won by people who refuse to accept that bureaucracy moves slower than bullets. Sometimes genius is just being too tired and too angry to wait for someone else to fix it. Sometimes it costs 42 cents. Sometimes it saves everything. The ripple effects of Valetti's innovation extended far beyond the Pacific Theater, though the connections were never officially documented. In July 1943, a Marine Corps liaison officer visiting the European theater mentioned the mirror systems during a casual conversation with Army Ordnance personnel at a depot outside London. Captain Gerald Fitzsimons, a tank commander with 3rd Armored Division, overheard the conversation. He'd lost 2 crews in Normandy hedgerow country, where German Panzerfaust teams hid in elevated positions, haylofts, church steeples, second-story windows. American tank commanders couldn't elevate their machine guns high enough without exposing themselves through open hatches. Fitzsimons requested technical specifications. He received a 2-page memo and 3 photographs of Valetti's original design. By September 1943, 16 Sherman tanks in Fitzsimons' battalion carried modified mirror systems on their turret-mounted 50-caliber machine guns. The installation used the same principle. Convex mirrors mounted on adjustable brackets. Total cost per unit $4.70, including labor. Tank commanders could now scan elevated positions without exposure. In the Battle of Aachen, October 1944, these modified tanks identified and suppressed 43 German anti-tank teams operating from upper floors. Estimated crew lives saved, between 80 and 120. Fitzsimons submitted a commendation for the Marine liaison officer who'd mentioned the mirrors. The paperwork was lost. Fitzsimons died in the Ardennes in December 1944, aged 28, when his tank hit a mine. His personal effects included a small notebook documenting the mirror modifications. His family donated it to a historical society in 1973. Nobody read it. The Soviet Army independently developed a similar system in late 1943 after capturing a modified American machine gun near Anzio. Soviet engineers examined it, filed a report classifying it as enemy technical innovation of moderate tactical value, and redesigned it using locally available materials. By March 1944, Red Army machine gun crews on the Eastern Front were installing crude mirror systems fabricated from shaving mirrors and wire salvaged from destroyed vehicles. The Soviet version was less refined than the American factory model, but functionally identical. Production records estimate 18,000 units were manufactured between March 1944 and May 1945. The Soviet military credited the innovation to collective ingenuity of forward combat engineers. Valetti's name never appeared in Soviet documents because the Soviets never learned his name. The idea had become anonymous, traveling across armies and continents as pure utility stripped of origin. After the war, several defense contractors attempted to patent mirror-based targeting systems for military weapons. All applications were rejected because prior art existed in the form of field modifications dating to 1943. The Patent Office files contained photographs of Valetti's original system, submitted as part of the Marine Corps Equipment Board report. The contractors argued that factory-refined versions constituted novel improvements. The Patent Office disagreed. The innovation remained public domain. Anyone could manufacture it. No one could own it. This meant no one profited from it, which meant no one had financial incentive to publicize it. The mirror systems became standard equipment, invisible through ubiquity. By 1950, they appeared in military supply catalogs listed as mirror assembly, targeting, auxiliary, with a national stock number and a unit price of $6.12. The catalog didn't explain what problem they solved or why they existed. They were just another item between mirror, dental, and mortar, 60 mm. Valetti never spoke publicly about his innovation. His family didn't know the details until 1982, when a Marine Corps historian researching Pacific Theater equipment modifications contacted him by telephone. The historian, Dr. Patricia Wainwright, was writing a technical history of field expedient modifications. She'd found Valetti's name in the 1943 Equipment Board report and tracked him through veterans' records. The conversation lasted 90 minutes. Valetti described the problem, the solution, the 71-hour installation marathon. He answered technical questions about mirror specifications and mounting bracket design. When Wainwright asked how he felt about saving over 600 lives, he was silent for 11 seconds. Then he said, "I just didn't want to watch any more kids die while we waited for the right paperwork." Wainwright's book, Expedient Solutions, Field Modifications in the Pacific War, 1942-1945, was published by a university press in 1984. Print run, 800 copies. It sold 417. Valetti's mirror system received 2 pages in Chapter 7, Weapons Modifications. The book is out of print. 3 copies exist in the Marine Corps Historical Division Library. One is checked out approximately twice per year. The innovation that saved hundreds of lives occupies less shelf space than a hardcover novel. This is not unusual. Military history preserves battles and commanders. It preserves strategic decisions and turning points. It does not efficiently preserve small acts of unauthorized genius by enlisted men who solved problems between midnight and dawn using materials that cost less than a pack of cigarettes. In 1994, 7 years after Valetti's death, a weapons collector in Oregon purchased a crate of surplus Marine Corps equipment at an estate sale. The crate contained 3 M1919 machine guns, various spare parts, and 1 mirror system still mounted on a gun that had been decommissioned in 1946. The collector recognized it as unusual, but couldn't identify its purpose. He posted photographs on an early internet military history forum. Within 6 hours, a retired Marine armorer identified it as a Pacific Theater targeting mirror, probably manufactured between 1943 and 1945. The collectors sold it to the National Museum of the Marine Corps for $350. It's currently in climate-controlled storage, cataloged as Object 1994.11127.4. It has never been displayed. The museum has 47,000 objects. They can display approximately 2,000 at any given time. Voletti's mirror system waits in a drawer, preserved but invisible. The last surviving member of Voletti's armorer team, Thomas Kowalski, died in 2003 at age 84 in Fort Myers, Florida. Before his death, he gave an oral history interview to a local veterans organization. He described the March 1943 installation marathon. "We worked 3 days straight. Dom, that's Sergeant Voletti, he wouldn't let us stop. Said every hour we wasted was another dead Marine. He was right. We installed those mirrors and guys stopped dying. Simple as that. He never got recognized for it. Not really. Got a Bronze Star, but the citation didn't say what for. After the war, nobody cared. He went back to Connecticut, worked in a shop, never complained. That was Dom. He fixed problems, didn't need credit, just needed fewer dead kids." Kowalski's interview is archived at the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Runtime, 43 minutes. It has been accessed digitally 7 times since 2003. The archive contains over 100,000 veteran interviews. They constitute an ocean of memory, mostly unheard. Voletti appears in exactly 3 of these interviews. Kowalski's, one by a Marine who served in his company, and one by a gunner whose life was saved by the mirror system in April 1943. That gunner, Robert Chanot, described looking up through the mirror and seeing the sniper who would have killed him. "That little mirror showed me death looking down at me. Showed me in time to do something about it. I got 87 more years because some sergeant I never met bought a shaving mirror and stayed up all night bolting it to guns. I tried to find him after the war. Wanted to say thank you. Never tracked him down. I hope somebody told him what he did mattered. Nobody told him. Or if they did, it wasn't enough. It's never enough. The mathematics of gratitude don't work in war. 623 men came home. Most never knew why. They attributed their survival to luck, or God, or good reflexes. They didn't know about the exhausted sergeant with a sheet metal background who couldn't sleep while waiting for proper channels. They went home, had families, built lives, grew old, died. Their children and grandchildren exist because Voletti spent 42 cents and violated regulations. But those descendants don't know the origin of their existence. They know Grandpa was a Marine. They don't know that Grandpa's survival depended on an unauthorized innovation by a man whose obituary ran 4 inches in a Connecticut newspaper. This is the unrecorded arithmetic of war. The saved lives propagate forward through generations, creating families and futures that branch infinitely into time. The innovator dies unrecognized, reduced to 4 inches and a box in an attic. The innovation becomes standard equipment, stripped of context and origin. The story dissolves into bureaucracy and catalog numbers and storage rooms where artifacts wait in darkness. But the lives continue. The children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of men who should have died in 1943 are walking around right now, living futures that shouldn't exist according to the original mathematics. They are Voletti's legacy, unknown and uncounted. They are the mirror's reflection, cast forward through decades into a present that was purchased with telephone wire and refusal to wait for permission. At 08:47 hours on March 14, 1943, Dominic Valetti twisted a mirror onto a machine gun and violated regulations to save lives. The mirror is in storage. The gun is destroyed. Valetti is 40 years dead. But somewhere today, the great-grandchild of Lance Corporal Perry Tanaka is living a life that began because a sergeant from Bridgeport couldn't accept bureaucracy moving slower than bullets. That child doesn't know Valetti's name. That child exists because of him. This is how we survive wars. Not through the celebrated innovations of generals and engineers, but through the exhausted genius of people too close to death to wait for approval. They fix the problem with whatever they have. They save who they can. They go home if they're lucky. They die unrecognized. The lives they saved scatter forward through time, like light through a mirror, reflected into futures they'll never see. Valetti never saw them. He just twisted the wire tight, checked the angle one last time, and moved to the next gun. There were 73 more to go. Dawn was coming. The Marines would need them. That was enough. It had to be enough. Sometimes it's all we get. The knowledge that we did what we could with what we had while there was still time. The mirror shows the truth. The truth is that genius isn't complicated. Genius is seeing the simple answer that saves lives and having the courage to install it without permission. 42 cents. 71 hours, 623 men who came home. That's the math. That's the mirror. That's the truth that dies with every generation and has to be learned again by people who find themselves alone at midnight with a problem that will kill someone tomorrow if they wait for the proper channels to save them. Valetti didn't wait. The men lived, the story died, but the lives go on. Reflected forward through time, unknown and uncounted, into futures built on the unauthorized genius of an exhausted sergeant who just couldn't watch any more kids die while filling out the paperwork.